Every night, my wife and I snuggle up together, a comforting routine that has become our sanctuary. There's something about the warmth of her body against mine, the way we fit together perfectly, that makes me feel safe and loved. We often talk about our day or share quiet laughter, but as we drift off to sleep, we simply bask in each other's presence. It's in those moments that the world outside fades away, and it's just the two of us, cocooned in our little bubble. In the stillness of the night, I often reflect on how these moments of connection ground me. Life can be chaotic, filled with responsibilities and stress, but when I lay next to her, everything feels right. The sound of her breath and the rhythm of her heartbeat are like a lullaby, soothing my worries and helping me drift into a peaceful sleep. It's a bond one cherishes deeply, knowing that we share not just a bed, but our lives, dreams, and fears. Little did I know that one fateful morning, this comforting routine would be shattered in the most terrifying way. What was supposed to be another peaceful night would soon turn into a chilling experience that would test the very fabric of our connection. I woke up one ordinary morning, the soft light of dawn spilling through the curtains. As I stirred, I could feel my wife nestled against me, her warmth a familiar comfort. The rhythm of her breathing was soothing, lulling me into a state of tranquility. This was how our mornings usually began, and I relished these moments of closeness, knowing the day ahead would bring its own challenges. However, as I lay there, a faint sound reached my ears, the gentle clinking of dishes and the soft bubbling of a coffee pot. It was a sound I recognized all too well. My wife was up and about in the kitchen, likely preparing our favorite breakfast, and I could even hear her humming a soft tune. It filled me with a sense of warmth, and I smiled, ready to join her for our morning ritual. But as I continued to listen, something felt off. The more I focused on the sounds coming from the kitchen, the more an unsettling feeling began to creep in. Why had I not felt her move? I turned my head to glance at the clock, and a pang of confusion hit me. What time was it? The morning light seemed too bright for the hour. My heart raced as the joyous melody turned into a haunting echo, and suddenly, I couldn't shake the growing dread in my chest. It was then that I realized I was struggling to move. The comfort of my wife's presence began to slip away, replaced by a chilling realization that something wasn't right. What should have been a simple morning was morphing into a nightmare, leaving me frozen in place as I grappled with the mounting confusion and fear. Panic surged within me as I attempted to lift my body, desperate to make my way to the kitchen. My mind was screaming for action, urging me to get up and check on my wife. But to my horror, I found myself utterly immobilized, trapped in a shell of flesh that refused to obey my commands. My limbs felt heavy, as if bound by invisible chains, and the very act of screaming for her was rendered impossible. Every muscle in my body strained against the oppressive weight that held me down. I fought against it, gritting my teeth and summoning every ounce of willpower I could muster. It was as if an unseen force was pressing me into the bed, stifling my voice and freezing my movements. The sounds from the kitchen continued, her humming intertwining with the clatter of utensils, but the warmth and familiarity of it now felt like a sinister taunt. I could feel the terror creeping in, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart as the realization dawned on me that something was terribly wrong. Time warped in those moments, stretching into an agonizing eternity. Each second felt like an hour. The minutes dripped slowly, thick with dread. I could hear the distant sounds of the coffee maker and the soft hum of her voice, yet they seemed to grow fainter, swallowed by the oppressive silence surrounding me. My breath quickened, each inhale a frantic gasp for relief from the panic that gripped me tighter with every passing moment. In the depths of my mind, I knew I had to break free. I had to reach her, to warn her of the suffocating darkness that was enveloping me. But no matter how fiercely I fought, my body remained unyielding, locked in place as I spiraled deeper into a nightmare of helplessness. The terror of losing control became palpable, a living thing that wrapped itself around my throat, tightening with every futile attempt to escape. After what felt like an eternity trapped in my own body, the suffocating weight began to lift. A sudden rush of adrenaline surged through me, and I was finally able to move. I bolted upright, my heart pounding in my chest as panic propelled me toward the kitchen. I had to see her, to reassure myself that she was truly there and not a figment of my mind's torment. As I sprinted into the kitchen, the familiar sights and sounds felt both comforting and terrifying. There she stood, my wife, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that had just unfolded. The moment our eyes met, I could see a flicker of confusion cross her face. I was breathless, struggling to explain the horror I had just experienced, the sense of dread that had engulfed me. I could hardly articulate the feeling of being trapped, the terror that something malevolent was lingering just beyond my reach. Her perplexity deepened as I recounted the events, and I could see her trying to grasp what I was saying. "I was just singing love," she replied softly, her brow furrowed in concern. I could sense the uncertainty in her voice, mirroring the confusion swirling in my mind. What had just happened? Was it simply a nightmare, a manifestation of my fears, or was there something darker at play? In that moment, the haunting question lingered between us, thickening the air with an unsettling tension that I knew we couldn't shake off easily. As I sat at the kitchen table, my mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. Was it a nightmare that had spilled into my waking hours, a mere figment of an overactive imagination? Or was it something more sinister, an unwelcome glimpse into a reality that defied explanation? My thoughts swirled in a chaotic dance, and I felt a chill creep up my spine as the memory of that paralyzing terror replayed in my mind. The fragility of reality weighed heavily on me, leaving a lingering sense of unease that I couldn't shake. I glanced at my wife, who was now stirring her coffee, her brow still furrowed in concern. How could I ensure our safety when the very fabric of our existence felt so easily unraveled? The warmth of our home, once a sanctuary, now felt tainted by uncertainty. What if something was lurking just beyond the veil of our understanding, ready to invade our lives? That experience had changed something within me, awakening a new awareness of the world around us. I found myself looking at shadows differently, questioning every creak and whisper that echoed through the house. The comfort of our daily routine had been disrupted, replaced by an unsettling reminder that not everything is as it seems. As we resumed our lives, I couldn't help but feel that the line between reality and the unknown had blurred, and with it, the fragile safety I had once taken for granted. The drive to my grandpa's house was filled with excitement as my family and I made our way through the winding roads. The air was thick with anticipation for my aunt's wedding, and I could already envision the festive atmosphere that awaited us. Grandpa's house, with its charming exterior and sprawling yard, was a familiar sight that brought back countless memories of family gatherings and laughter. I always loved visiting. It felt like a sanctuary where love and tradition intertwined. As we pulled into the driveway, the smell of blooming flowers mixed with the aroma of home-cooked meals wafting from the kitchen. I could hear the distant sound of relatives laughing and sharing stories, reminding me of the strong bonds that held our family together. The place was alive with joy, a stark contrast to the eerie events that would soon unfold. I took a moment to appreciate the warmth of the surroundings, knowing that these gatherings were rooted in our family's traditions, passed down through generations. Little did I know that this weekend would be unlike any other. While I felt secure in the embrace of family and tradition, an unsettling energy lingered in the air, unnoticed by the joyful chatter around me. The warmth and safety of Grandpa's home would soon be tested by something beyond our understanding, casting a shadow over the celebrations we had eagerly awaited. The wedding dinner was a vibrant tapestry of laughter, delicious food, and heartwarming stories shared around the table. My aunt looked radiant in her wedding dress, and the glow of happiness enveloped everyone as we raised our glasses to toast her new beginning. The aroma of roasted meats and freshly baked bread filled the air, mingling with the sweet scent of flowers decorating the table. I felt grateful to be surrounded by family, each face familiar and comforting, reminding me of our shared history and love. As the evening wore on, I settled into the rhythm of the celebration, savoring every moment. My cousins and I exchanged playful banter while the adults reminisced about old times, their laughter echoing through the room. It was a safe haven, a bubble of joy where the outside world seemed to vanish. I felt an overwhelming sense of security, knowing that I was part of a close-knit family that always supported one another, no matter what. However, as the clock ticked closer to midnight, I couldn't shake an inexplicable feeling that something was lurking just beyond our joyful gathering. It was a subtle discomfort that contrasted sharply with the warmth of the evening. I brushed it off as mere fatigue from the day's excitement, unaware that the true test of our unity and courage was still to come. The night would soon take an unexpected turn, shattering our blissful celebration with something unimaginable. The comfort of the night was abruptly shattered when I was jolted awake by bone-chilling howls echoing from the roof. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but the haunting sound persisted, growing louder and more menacing. My heart raced as I exchanged terrified glances with my cousins, all of us wide-eyed and frozen under the covers. The familiar warmth of the wedding celebration faded, replaced by a cold dread that gripped my chest. The howls were unlike anything I had ever heard, primal and eerie, sending shivers down my spine. The cats, usually unfazed by anything, scattered in a panic, their fur standing on end as they darted under the furniture. I could feel the tension rising in the air. It was palpable, like the calm before a storm. My grandfather's voice echoed in my mind, warning us about the dark legends that surrounded the forest near his house, tales of creatures that roamed the night. As the howls continued, I couldn't help but feel that we were being watched, that something was lurking just beyond our sight. Fear clutched at my throat, making it hard to breathe as the howls reverberated through the walls. We gathered ourselves, whispering about what could be out there, our imaginations running wild. It felt like a scene from a horror movie, and I realized that the safety of our family gathering was rapidly slipping away. It was then that we decided to venture outside, drawn by a mix of curiosity and terror, unaware of the nightmare that awaited us just beyond the door. Gathering my courage, I stepped out into the night, my heart pounding with each step. The cool air sent chills down my spine as I squinted into the darkness, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding around me. My cousins huddled close, whispering fears that only added to the thick tension hanging in the air. The howls had subsided, but a heavy silence enveloped us, making every sound feel amplified. It was then that I spotted something moving on the roof, a towering silhouette against the pale moonlight. As I focused on the figure, I felt my breath hitch in my throat. There, perched atop the roof, stood a grotesque creature, easily 2 meters tall, with matted fur and an unnaturally elongated body. Its eyes glowed with a feral intensity, reflecting the moonlight as it stared down at us. A wave of terror washed over me. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was frozen in place, captivated and horrified by this impossible sight. It was like something straight out of a nightmare, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary animal. Suddenly, my grandfather burst from the house, his face pale and eyes wide with panic. He grabbed a sturdy piece of wood from the porch, his hands trembling as he prepared to confront the creature. "Get back inside," he shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of fear. The confidence I usually saw in him was replaced by sheer desperation, and for a moment, I could see the vulnerability of a man who had spent his life protecting his family. His reaction only intensified my dread. Whatever that thing was, it had turned my safe haven into a scene of horror. As my grandfather stepped forward, brandishing the makeshift weapon, I felt a mixture of admiration and fear for him. He was ready to defend us against an unspeakable terror, but I wondered if any amount of bravery could prepare him for what lay before us. In that moment, time seemed to freeze, and I held my breath, knowing that our lives were about to change forever as the creature prepared to make its next move. Just as my grandfather raised the piece of wood to confront the creature, it lunged off the roof with a speed that seemed impossible for its size. In an instant, it was gone, disappearing into the thick foliage of the forest bordering the house. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves as the creature vanished into the shadows. We stood there, frozen in disbelief, the adrenaline still coursing through our veins. Had we really just witnessed such a horrifying sight? My mind raced, trying to process the reality of what we had seen. As the shock slowly began to wear off, questions flooded my thoughts. What exactly had we encountered? Was it a mythical beast, a figment of our collective imagination, or something even more sinister? The way it had moved with such agility and stealth suggested it was more than just a wild animal. It felt otherworldly. I glanced at my grandfather, who looked equally bewildered, his eyes scanning the darkness as if expecting the creature to return at any moment. The familiarity of our surroundings had been stripped away, leaving a lingering feeling of vulnerability. In the days that followed, our family celebrated the wedding, but the incident lingered like a heavy fog. Conversations shifted awkwardly whenever someone brought up the night's events, and I could see the apprehension etched on everyone's faces. Each time I glanced toward the forest, a shiver ran down my spine, igniting a sense of curiosity mixed with fear about what else might be lurking in the darkness. The mystery of the creature haunted me, a reminder that the world was filled with unknowns, and not all of them were benign.